Hello to all the viewers tuning into Mr. Twilight's channel. Welcome to another episode in the Nighttime Horror Stories series. In tonight's episode, we talk about the terror lurking behind what seems like a harmless hitchhike request. Imagine this. It's 2 a.m. The radio is reduced to static, and then, in the dim glow of your headlights, a lone figure raises a thumb. Would you stop? The 3 stories you're about to hear were sent in by viewers themselves, each accompanied by a note. Please tell my story so no one else makes the same mistake. If you're still brave enough, recline your seat, turn off the lights, plug in your headphones, and get ready to uncover 3 terrifying true hitchhiking horror stories. Now, let's open the door and invite the stranger into your backseat. Story 1. The Empty Road. Please, stop the car! Sarah's scream exploded into the silence of the night, shaking the still air, but the large man behind the wheel, wearing a worn baseball cap, didn't react like a normal person. He simply tilted his head, a grin stretching unnaturally toward his ears. His eyes, reflecting the flickering dashboard lights, glinted with something twisted. Not anger, but delight, like a predator savoring the moment it traps its prey. The truck suddenly veered onto a narrow dirt road, swallowed by a dense pine forest. The air grew heavy with the stench of decay, wet soil, rotting leaves, and something foul seeping in through the cracked window. Above them, the sky had vanished beneath thick black canopies. No stars, no moonlight. Sarah pressed herself into the corner of the back seat, hands trembling as she reached for her phone. No signal. The only thing working was her flashlight, just bright enough to reflect her shadow on the window. But then, something else appeared, another faint figure beside her, even though she was alone. Sarah, a second-year psychology student at a university in Colorado, was always careful, but that night, things didn't go as planned. She had gone camping with friends, but a family emergency forced her to leave early and find her way back alone. When she reached the bus stop on the forest edge, she realized the last bus had left nearly an hour ago. Darkness fell quickly, and her thin jacket couldn't keep out the late winter chill. But worse than the cold was the eerie sensation that something, was watching her. Then a battered pickup truck pulled up. The driver, Rick, seemed friendly. His deep, smooth voice sounded like someone who'd practiced conversations 100 times. "Hop in, I'm heading into town. Same direction as you." "Right." Sarah hesitated, but the looming isolation of the forest pressed her to accept. At first, Rick chatted casually, asking about her school, her family, her interests. But soon, the questions turned invasive. "You live alone. Did anyone know you were coming here today? Does your family call you often?" Sarah grew uneasy. She checked her watch. 20 minutes had passed. The road didn't match what she remembered from the map. Her phone still showed no signal. The road beneath them had turned rough and rocky. "Where are you going?" "This isn't the road to town," she said. Rick didn't answer. Instead, he began to speak slowly, almost like reciting a prayer. "There was a girl hitchhiking on this very road, but she wasn't as lucky as you. They found her backpack hanging from a tree branch. Her body was—" "Stop the car!" Sarah screamed, hands clamped over her ears. Rick turned, his eyes void of any humanity. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel, then suddenly slammed on the brakes. The truck stopped deep in the forest. No streetlights, only the howling wind and the whispering insects. From beneath his seat, Rick reached back and pulled out a thick rope and a gleaming knife. The blade caught the dash light, flickering like a grin. Death's grin. Sarah didn't scream anymore. She kicked the door with all her strength until it nearly broke open and bolted into the woods. Behind her, Rick shouted, "Stop! It won't hurt if you stop." His footsteps pounded behind her. The knife slashed through the undergrowth with sharp, hissing sounds. She ran blindly, branches tearing at her legs, blood soaking through her white shirt. Suddenly, a roar echoed through the trees. Not human, not animal. Rick froze. No, it can't be. Sarah stumbled and turned back. She caught one last glimpse of Rick, paralyzed in terror. Behind him, a massive shadow emerged from the mist, eyes glowing red like fire. Rick screamed, not the scream of a predator, but of prey. He fled back to the truck, stumbling like a man waking from a nightmare. Sarah crawled forward, running until her body gave out. Just before losing consciousness, she heard a voice and saw a flashlight beam. Is someone there? It was a local hunter returning to camp. He called for help, and Sarah was taken to the hospital that night. Police later found Rick's truck abandoned deep in the forest. It was empty, except for a bloody handprint on the windshield. Rick was caught 2 days later, wandering into a small town 30 kilometers away. He was hysterical, unable to explain what happened. He only repeated one sentence, It's still following me. It knows me. It watched me in the mirror. Investigators traced Rick to at least 3 previous disappearances, all involving young women who had hitchhiked alone. But the most chilling discovery was at the spot where the truck stopped. Bizarre carvings on the trees, ancient symbols no one could interpret, and a wooden plaque stained with dried blood, reading, "Those who sow fear will reap true horror." So, was Sarah truly lucky to survive, or was it the shadow in the woods that chose to let her go? The forest is still there, and that empty road may still be waiting for someone else. Story 2: The Ghost by the Roadside. Now we come to the second tale. I couldn't scream, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The words escaped as a faint whisper. A slash of light pierced the pouring rain as the headlights of an oncoming truck cut through the darkness. In that moment, Mike turned to glance at the man behind the wheel and wished he hadn't. No skin, no breath. What haunted Mike forever was the man's hollow, black eyes and the crooked, unnatural smile stretching up to his ears. The man turned to Mike and whispered, "You shouldn't have gotten in the car." Mike, a 23-year-old man, was driving from Portland to visit a friend in the outskirts of Eugene. A heavy storm broke out mid-journey, reducing visibility through the windshield to nearly zero. The wind howled and slammed against the car, as if the entire forest was screaming in the dark. 30 miles from the nearest town, Mike's car suddenly stalled. The dashboard froze, lights died, and no matter how many times he turned the key, the engine wouldn't start. Left with no other choice, Mike put on his raincoat and stepped out, thumbing for a ride by the roadside. But the road remained empty. Rain poured without pause. 30 long minutes passed. Finally, a battered silver sedan with dim headlights pulled up. The passenger window rolled halfway down. Inside, a man stared at Mike with a blank expression and nodded. He didn't speak. He just unlocked the passenger door. Mike hesitated for a second, but the cold, exhaustion, and desperation won out. He climbed in. The first thing he noticed was the cold, not from the storm, but a chilling, eerie cold that seeped into his skin and raised every hair on his body. The man introduced himself as John. He had pale skin, and his thin hands clenched the steering wheel as if it might vanish. There was no radio playing, no questions about where Mike was headed. He just drove slowly, like a machine. Mike tried to make conversation. "Do you live around here?" he asked. No response. But at a bend in the road, John suddenly turned and smiled, a stiff, unfamiliar smile, as though his face were being controlled by something inhuman. "You know," he rasped, his voice dry and hollow like it came from a long, dead throat. "This used to be my last road." Mike shivered. Every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. Fear crept in, but he forced himself to stay calm. He glanced at the dashboard. Everything was speed. No fuel, no lights, but the car kept driving. As they entered a desolate stretch, far from homes or rest stops, John began to mumble, "They never found me. You know, just the car. I wasn't there anymore. Maybe I'm still driving forever." Mike leaned away. John didn't look human anymore. Each time another vehicle's headlights lit up the interior, Mike saw it clearly. John's body was translucent. Mike's heart pounded, mouth dry, brain screaming for escape. Then, a truck approached from the opposite direction. As its lights briefly illuminated John's face again, Mike shouted in panic, "No!" Without hesitation, he threw open the door. The car was rolling slowly on the slick road, and Mike hurled himself out. He tumbled over the wet ground, smashed his head on a rock, scraped his limbs, but he didn't stop. He got up and ran toward the truck's headlights. The truck driver stopped and helped him in. After hearing Mike's story, he immediately called the police. When they returned to the spot where Mike had leapt out, there was no car. Police later revealed that the location where Mike met John was the site of a deadly accident more than 7 years ago. A man named John had lost control during a storm, crashed into the woods, and died in an explosion. Locals claimed they often saw car lights flicker and vanish on that road during heavy rain. Mike survived, but he carries a long scar on his left shoulder from hitting the rock during his escape. And yet he says that whenever it rains hard and he glances at his rearview mirror, he sometimes sees a faint silhouette in the back seat, smiling. Would you dare accept a ride on a stormy night? Remember, not every car that stops by the roadside belongs to the living. Story 3. The Fateful Ride. "I'm sorry, little girl, but I'm afraid you can't leave anymore." The raspy voice echoed through the damp air, making Jenny's heart stop. She wanted to run, but couldn't. Her legs were bound tightly to an old wooden chair with rough rope. The musty scent of dust and ashes filled her nose. She glanced around the pitch-black cabin. The only light came from a flickering candle on a cracked wooden table. The walls were covered in straw dolls, each with a grotesquely distorted face. One had real-looking hair, long and curly. Another doll sat near her feet, and around its neck hung a necklace identical to Jenny's. Jenny had just left her hometown in Texas, setting off for California with dreams of a fresh start. Carrying only a small backpack, some cash, and a hopeful heart, she decided to hitchhike to save money. That afternoon, the sun dipped behind tall trees, casting a warm orange glow over the highway. She stood near an old gas station, thumb out, waving at cars. None stopped, until a faded blue Bic, a vintage model, rolled to a stop. Behind the wheel sat an elderly woman, probably over 70, with deep-set wrinkles and a kindly smile. Her silver hair was neatly pinned back. She spoke gently. "Where are you headed, dear? I'm going that way too." "Come on in." Relieved, Jenny climbed in. The woman introduced herself as Edna, saying she lived in a small town near the woods. Her voice was soft and soothing, almost hypnotic, but the longer they drove, the narrower the roads became. Fewer cars passed. Soon, they were completely isolated. "Here, have some lemonade." "It's too hot today," the woman said, offering a porcelain cup that looked centuries old. Jenny hesitated, but didn't want to be rude. She took a sip, and suddenly, her vision blurred, her head spun. The last thing she heard before everything faded was Edna's distant whisper, "Your soul will live on." In the doll, Jenny woke in a dark wooden house. Her limbs were tied, her throat burned, her head throbbed. The room felt like the site of some ancient ritual, wooden and animal, skin artifacts, cracked pottery, and a thick, metallic stench. On the table lay a large leather-bound book, its open pages scrawled with unrecognizable symbols and diagrams, rituals to transfer human souls into straw dolls. Edna entered, holding a silver knife etched with strange markings. Her kind face had twisted into something cruel, inhuman. Her eyes were blank white, no pupils. "Your soul will keep my baby warm," Jenny thrashed, panic flooding every cell. Edna began to chant, her voice like wind screeching through a graveyard. The candlelight flared, now glowing eerie green. One of the straw dolls on the wall began to twitch, its head swaying as if waking up. Then came laughter, a child's giggle, echoing from the dark corner. A small figure darted past Jenny's back. "Mommy, I'm cold," Jenny screamed, eyes darting around the room, heart about to explode. She rocked back violently. The chair leg snapped, slamming her to the ground. Pain exploded through her body, but the rope had loosened slightly. There was no time. Edna howled like a possessed beast, the candle bursting into green flame that belched black smoke, swallowing the room. In one desperate motion, Jenny kicked over the altar table. The candle fell onto the dry floorboards. Fire erupted. Some dolls caught flame first, and as they burned, they shrieked like living people. Edna shrieked, "No! My soul!" Jenny grabbed the silver blade, cutting through the ropes. Her hand bled, but she didn't stop. She ran, bursting out of the cabin into a night filled with ash, embers, and ghostly cries from the forest behind her. Police found her the next morning, covered in cuts, exhausted and shaking. At first, no one believed her story. But when they investigated the burned house, they found disturbing proof. In the basement, they discovered 12 half-burned straw dolls. The surrounding earth held human bones, real hair, and scraps of ID cards. One victim had been missing for years, also last seen hitchhiking along the same highway. Jenny survived, but something inside her had changed forever. Every time she passes a doll shop, she trembles. In her dreams, a girl with tangled hair stands in a burning room, calling her Mummy. The question remains, did Jenny truly escape? Or did part of her soul stay behind, traded for her life? Would you still accept a ride from a stranger, especially if they smiled and asked, "Do you want to go home?" So, we've just taken a stormy ride through 3 chilling true hitchhiking horror stories. What unsettles me the most isn't the eerie sounds or the ghostly faces flickering under the headlights. It's the way these dark forces appear and vanish in an instant, leaving behind haunting memories that victims carry for life. That overwhelming helplessness in the face of the unexplainable is the real monster gripping the steering wheel, even after you've safely left the car. Whether or not you believe in the supernatural, one piece of advice always holds true. Never let your guard down when driving at night. We can never be 100% sure that the figure by the roadside is human. I hope tonight's 3 stories gave you a few heart-pounding, spine-tingling moments. And if you've ever had a strange or terrifying experience picking up or hitching a ride, share your story in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and support the channel. I'll keep searching for more true, mysterious, and terrifying tales to share with you. Mr. Twilight wishes you a peaceful night's sleep.